Hi, so I want to do this video for the Instagram channel Black Women PhDs. There was a conversation recently about how do we start to save as we get out of graduate school and start teaching, some of us in faculty positions. And I'm not here to give advice, I'm just going to talk about my path and hopefully give you some tips for consideration. So the first thing that I would do is to learn more about any type of pension system that your university has. If you're an adjunct lecturer and there's a mandatory contribution towards your retirement, find out what that is. If you're full-time faculty and you're part of an official retirement system where they give a contribution, it's possible that you're required to give a contribution as well. So find out what that is. It could be 5% of your salary, it could be 7% of your salary, but that's the first thing you want to find out. How much am I taking out of my paycheck already each month to contribute to my retirement? And after you look at that, start to think about, your needs for the month and rent, all of your basic necessities. And what you want to do is, once you know what that is, figure out what can I take out of my paycheck first to go towards my retirement. And you don't want to consider spending that money, because if you do, you'll always find a home for it. So this amount could be different for everyone. I'm just going to tell you what I do. So first, I would say if you qualify for a Roth IRA, I would go ahead and do that. The yearly limit, I think right now, is $5,500 up to a certain age. I don't have all of my numbers in front of me, but I would find out, if you can make the monthly contributions for your Roth IRA. Now, if you're in a different setting and you have some kind of employer match, many people would say you want to contribute up to the percentage that your employer matches before you do the Roth IRA, because you're basically getting free money. As much as they're going to match, you want to go ahead and contribute as well. My university doesn't have a match. Again, we have the contribution that my university makes to my retirement, and I have a required contribution. So after that, I look at filling up the Roth IRA. Then I would see what other retirement options do you have at your university. You might have something called a 403B, you might have a 457, and you might have a 401k. So between these options, I'm just going to tell you what I chose. I looked at, I believe, our 403B, and it had the best expense ratios compared to the others. And that's just basically for a particular fund, how much you're paying to be a part of that fund each year. It's usually a percentage. There may also be administrative fees. So even though they may seem similar, there are differences. And I know that's a lot of information for this video, but if you have your paperwork in front of you, just please pay attention to the expense ratios. You want low expense ratios and you want low administrative fees. So in our plans, I tend to favor Fidelity or Vanguard funds. I find them easier to manage, and there are also places where I had a IRA before I came to work for our current system. So one thing that you can do if you want to set it and forget it is look into a target retirement fund, and that's based on the year in which you're planned to retire. So if you would retire around 2050, you would want a target retirement 2050 fund. If you're going to retire in 2042, maybe you want the 2040 retirement fund. I know I've given you a lot of information, but I hope that you'll rewatch this again if anything gets confusing. So, of course, you can invest in individual index funds, but the target fund is good for someone that doesn't want to tweak it over and over again, because as you move closer to retirement, they're going to reallocate so that you become more conservative. They're going to give you fewer stocks and more bonds. But if you want personally a more conservative or more aggressive portfolio, then you might want to do individual funds. And if you just want to be able to maximize your return by having lower expense ratios, you also might choose to mix your own. And you can do the same thing when you are actually doing your Roth IRA investments. You can look for target funds or you can look for index funds. If you want to learn more about funds, I would refer you to Bogleheads, Bogleheads, and the Motleyfool websites. There's a lot of forums where people talk about investing. So I didn't want to go into too much detail in this video, but if you find out which options your university has, again, it could be a 403b, a 457, a 401k, and look at which ones have the lowest ratios. You can start to invest there, but you want to be careful of how much you can give before hitting your maximum. Some of those you can combine and give up to $18,000 a year. So like I said, I can go into more detail in future videos. I just want to be very careful not to overwhelm, but I hope this gets some of you started in thinking about where and how to invest. You can see if your university has a representative. For example, if Fidelity is working with your institution, there may be somebody who's willing to meet with you. It's really up to you what you consider to do. I don't have annuities. I am not the best person to speak to that. It's something that I've chosen not to do. I personally like doing the target funds and a few of the index funds that I can look at and manage myself and save a lot on fees. But again, to each his own or her own. So please take the time to find out if there's representatives you can speak with on your campus, but do start putting something aside. If you want to start small, make sure that you're looking into the Roth IRA. There's an income limit, so if you're making above a certain amount, single or as a household, you will phase out of that. So the next thing you want to look at is the 401k, the 403b, or the 457. And you don't have to max these out, but start somewhere and just start to think about when you plan to retire and what your university's pension looks like. How long do you have to be there to be vested so that if you were to leave, you would have a pension? These are really important things to know as you plan your career. So again, I welcome your questions, and just thanks for requesting this video. It's really a pleasure to be able to speak with you. Wish you